Hi, I'm Clint Smith. Welcome to Thunder Ranch. At Thunder Ranch, I teach firearms and tactics and have done so as a career for about 30 years. One of the hood ornaments of the school, and probably one of the things I feel most strongly about, is a class that I developed in 1983 with the nomenclature of urban rifle. Urban rifle, in the most simple definition, would be how to fight with a rifle inside what you'd consider to be normally pistol ranges. And that is actually where most rifle fights take place, contrary to popular belief. I understand and I accept the ideas of shooting targets at 500 or 600 yards and that it's fun and that it can be efficient. I got all that. But in reality, most fights take place at relatively short ranges. Those of you from the private sector, the reason urban rifle would be so important is you would be hard pressed to find and justify before a jury of your peers why I shot somebody at 400 yards with a scoped rifle, where I probably am going to be pressed hard to justify why I shot somebody at 40 yards with a rifle. 4 yards, 8 yards down the hallway, length of my house, yes, it could be done and we could do it. People go, well, isn't a rifle a bit much for using inside? Yes, except the idea of being in a fight is to win. And I can't think of anything better than taking a bigger gun or a better gun. And that was the whole premise of the rifle format. Generally, it's taught on what I would call an AR platform, basically military Kalashnikovs, AR platforms. Could I use a rifle like a Winchester 94 inside the house? Absolutely. Should I shoot a 30-06 armor-piercing round inside my house? Probably not. But then again, one of the other cornerstones that we're known for is a very simple word called logic, L-O-G-I-C. If I'm about to launch a 30-06 through my apartment complex in Houston, Texas, and it has a 30-06 armor-piercing round in it, that I probably am going to collect interest on that loan. So above all else, I want you to understand that what we're trying to do, what we're trying to address is how to fight with a rifle inside what you consider pistol ranges, and we would like for you to apply the concept of logic while you did so. There are basically three things that we'd like to address with you. They could be called, in theory, the purpose of the course. In this particular case, since this is the classroom segment, this would be the purpose of the lecture in anticipation of going to the range. The first thing that I really want to address with you, and I'll do it somewhat here, but more importantly on the range segment, is I want to talk to you about marksmanship, the actual use of sights and trigger. Those three fundamental things: aiming, the relationship of the sights; holding, the relationship of the shooter to the rifle and the relationship of the rifle to the target; and then squeezing, or the compression of the trigger, so that I don't disrupt the sights on the target. That would be the first part. The second element is relatively simple. We want to address techniques for manipulation. That's what most of you are actually short on. You'll kind of go, well, I know how to shoot, but I don't know how to load the gun, and I don't know how to clear a stoppage, and I don't know what to do with the gun when I have it in a fight. So we'll talk about it somewhat now, and I'll give you basics that you can go back and look at, but primarily what we're going to do are those issues will be addressed on the range segment, but I'll give you the platform, the foundation, so we say the basement level, while we're here in the lecture part. And the last thing is I'd want you to start to consider a mindset, a mental conditioning for what's going on. I'll talk to you later about the color code in this format, but primarily I need for you to have a willingness in your head and your heart to fight and win, and then what we're going to do is talk about using the best tool that we can to get the job done. Primarily, before we roll the ball on this about what they'll do and what we'll do, I need for you to understand there are probably two questions that can't be answered by any school. I won't be able to answer them for you. I'll try. But my job is not truly to answer them for you. My job is truly to make you aware of them and to make you think on your own. I don't want you to be a rote little monkey doing everything that, well, he said and I'm doing it that way. I'm not looking for a groupie. What I'm looking for is a smart student, someone who will pick up something and take it and put it into their environment. How you apply it may be different. If I live in Pump-Handle, Montana, I might have one approach. If I lived in an apartment complex in Houston, Texas, I might have another approach. But in the end, the results will be the same. If we're in this confrontation, we need to win. The first question that I can't answer for you, and I don't feel bad about it because no one else can either, is what will the threat look like? Historically, people categorize people by their ethnic background, the color of their skin. I think all that is a waste of energy, okay? It's just very simply a waste. I don't know what the threat will look like, okay? And you don't either, all right? And so why would we care? So what we need to do, since we don't care what they look like, is get a set of criteria or something that will help us. And the first thing would be to see their hands. We need to see their hands. If you encounter someone in your house, it wouldn't matter whether you had a Louisville Slugger or an AR. I primarily need to see their hands. Show me your hands, okay? Get out of my house, whatever those formats would be. Without your ability to see their hands, you should feel like your life's in jeopardy, because it probably is if you can't see their hands. They basically are going to be acting or reacting, or vice versa. You'll basically be acting or reacting to something. So any use of protective cover, any use of the gun between you and the threat, any use where you could start to maximize the distance would be to your advantage. But we need to see their hands. Their hands are what have weapons. In that category, you should also figure that you may encounter people with a disparity of size. They're bigger, you're smaller. So my use in defending myself and going before the grand jury is the guy was 6'6", he's coming down the hallway. My wife is 5 foot tall, okay? She weighs 90 pounds soaking wet. Her premise for defending herself, he had broken her house. She was in fear of her life, okay? And he's a lot bigger than her. People go, well, could you shoot him for that? Well, I didn't say you could shoot everybody for that, but it does make it so that it's at least an issue to consider. If I look at this guy, okay, and he's 20 years old, looks like a linebacker for the Green Bay Packers, and I at 57 with my little curmudgeon self, okay, that would be a reason for me to consider defending myself. There could also be a disparity of numbers. I simply go outside my home and there are 4 people there, okay, and they may or may not be armed, but their ability to close the ground with me would put me in jeopardy. And if they take the gun or we start to fight or struggle over the gun, that would be a reason for me to defend myself, so I have some idea of what's going on. You also probably, as the next issue, okay, would need to be in fear of your life, but more importantly, rather than being in fear, your ability to communicate that fact that you were in fear of your life to a jury of your peers is going to be the real issue. So the deal is I need to be able to go, well, I did this based on the fact that I was in fear for my family because the guy was coming down the hallway with a handgun, so I needed to defend myself. The next one would be, I simply would like to speak to a lawyer. And people go, well, why do I want to talk to a lawyer for? You know, I don't like lawyers. Well, you never like fire trucks either until your house is on fire. So it's relatively simple, okay? I need to see their hands. I need to be in fear of my life. More importantly, I need to be able to communicate that. And if I was involved in some scenario, then I'd like to talk to a lawyer, okay? And remembering that when you're in deep water, keep your mouth shut. In that venue, as we talk about it, if you're ever involved in a confrontation, I have 3 suggestions, okay? If, when the officers come, I think things that you'd want to say. I was in fear for my life, okay, which is why I had the gun and was defending myself. I'd like to have him arrested, not because he will or won't, because if you shot him and he's not participating in shall we say, life anymore, because he's laying on a floor shot full of holes. The key is the reason you want him arrested is because the officer will document that and he will say that in court, okay, that Mr. Smith said that he wanted him arrested, and that's really good. And then the last thing is relatively simple, okay? I'd like to speak to my lawyer again, and then that pretty much cuts and dries those things for you. It can be very elaborate, and depending on state laws, there's lots of issues, but you could see how these could be good general guidelines. Unfortunately, the second question that I'm not able to answer for you completely is what will it take to win the fight? About 99.9% of the time, most confrontations are solved by simple physical presence of the gun, or what we would call a command presence. Personally, I think if you have the gun and you're in a position of advantage, like behind the door frame, behind the dresser, and you ask for verbal compliance, drop the weapon, get out of my house, whatever the sequence is. Most people will not want to mess with you if you have that. So command presence, okay, visually and verbally. If you look like you know what you're doing and you are willing to do it, most people are not going to want to screw with you, okay? And it's just that simple. So remember that when we talk, and when I talk to you on the range, I often mention asking for compliance, okay? And I'll say, stop, drop the weapon. People go, well, why am I talking to cardboard? Because we'll do in a fight what we've done in training, only we'll do it more poorly. So you need to go ahead and practice it now. It doesn't hurt anything. And then, unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on your perspective, on a very rare occasion, there are people who need to be shot, and they will give you no other alternative. But the key is, remember, they gave you no other alternative. They're being shot based on what they did, not on what you did. And I have no grief with that myself personally. There comes a category called problems that you're likely to encounter. The reason that I like these and the reason that I continue to teach them is because they're very functional. They work, and they also start to show people what their problems might be so that they can address them in training and in their mindset as they prepare for this. The first issue really is very simple. It's range and range to target. There are primarily 3. If we were talking about a handgun, it would be muzzle contact, short range, or the whole, what we would call like across your bedroom, and then long range, the length of the house, the length of the car, something in that format. When we add a rifle into the mix, it makes a little bit of difference. For one thing, if I basically took muzzle contact first, someone makes contact with me, they put their hand on the front of the gun, I step back, they swing the muzzle to the center line, and I press the trigger, I'm probably not gonna really have much of a fight after that. You may have to take a shower because there could be some overspray, all right? But the deal is, remember, they anchored themselves on the front of the gun and tried to take it away from you. So that would be muzzle contact. The short range ones inside the house. Basically, it's the manipulation of the gun. In other words, I want to watch how this thing is working, okay, and watch the muzzle so I'm not breaking corners too soon and basically making tactical errors. Then the last one in that category would be a relatively long-range fight down the hallway, length of your car, and trust me, everybody goes, a rifle? There are more rifle fights that have taken place at short range than long range. I cannot shoot what I cannot identify, okay? And I need to identify what I'm shooting. That's the whole issue. I need to see what's going on with them. So you got muzzle contact, have no fear of that. I'd rather not have them on the front of the gun, but they're not gonna follow the gun if they grab it, okay? You got that mid-range, or what we'd call short range, across the hallway, across the width of the car, long range, length of the car, down the hallway in your house. And those are all issues and areas where the rifle will be a very effective tool. You might have to shoot 9 rounds out of a 9mm to solve your problem on center mass hits on somebody inside your house. You probably shoot them once with a 223, okay, or a 308, and trust me, the fat lady's gonna sing. Timing is always an issue. I ask everyone I've ever met who was in a fight, did you see a stopwatch in the fight? They don't, okay? So the deal is really talk about time frame. In reality, the time frame for the fight will last and it'll be pivotal on a couple of things. One is marksmanship. If you get a good rock solid center hit on somebody with a rifle, trust me, they're gonna lose enthusiasm as far as being in that fight pretty quick. I didn't say the fight was over, and I didn't say you won. What I said is you hit them really good, and I'd get ready to hit them again, and it'd be just that simple. Another contributing factor with the time frame of the fight would be the number of rounds that you had available to you. Simply, most fights are won by the last round fired. If the last round is the first round, that's very good. If it's a 30-round magazine with 27 rounds in it and it takes the 27th or 28th round and that stops the fight, then it is. But you need to have ammo to be in the fight. Remember, a number of rounds fired would be a category I would address with you. Most people don't shoot to apply marksmanship. They shoot because it makes them feel good or it makes them happy. You'll see them shooting Iraqi offhand over the top of the wall or around the corner, bada. This is a complex issue for us. If we look at it in a certain format, we know that the purpose of shooting is hitting. We also know that marksmanship is achieved by looking at sights, but you can get an idea about how to apply marksmanship. If you look at all medical records, 50% of everyone who was killed in combat in Vietnam for 10 years of combat, killed and or wounded, 50%. Were killed and or wounded from the collarbones up. So the deal is if we try to apply rifle marksmanship and we look at that and we're trying to do it to minimize the number of rounds fired, my only suggestion is don't shoot over protective cover, especially on ARs, AKs, HKs. The height of the barrel is here, the height of the sight is here, there's a mechanical offset. Everybody in America is wonder gluing scopes and lasers and thermal imagery and all kinds of magic on top of the gun, and all that stuff does is lift your head higher and higher and higher if you're trying to apply marksmanship. So at minimum, minimize the number of rounds you fire. Remember, the purpose of shooting is hitting. Remember, what we're trying to do is get marksmanship, not volume of fire, okay? Shoot well. The purpose of shooting is to hit, and keep your head down when these things go on so that you're shooting around protective cover rather than over cover, regardless of your occupation. Boo. She's like one of my best friends, and she'll go in and out of here, but while we're here, I got 3 categories that I want to talk to you about as far as targets, okay? Targets are pretty simple. On the first category of targets, we would talk about the target itself. It's relatively big. It would be sort of from helmet to crotch. So that's a frontal approach. It could be something standing sideways where you'd have an angular shot. And probably the one that I would want you to consider the most, okay, is that most of the targets in fights move. It's always amazing. The guy goes, what happened? Well, we shot 40 rounds. Well, what happened? Well, we didn't hit him. Well, why? Well, he was moving. Well, what were you doing? Well, I was moving. So you were moving, he was moving, and we shot 40 rounds and no one got hit. Wonder why that was. Well, I never practiced that very much. Aha. The target itself is relatively big. The actual marksmanship problems are not actually always that complex. okay, especially at the ranges we're talking about. The real key is the target is probably going to move and you might be moving, or most definitely they probably will be once this thing starts. So you need to consider that would be one of the things that you would address as far as in your practice, just trying to pick up as much stuff as you can moving. Target itself, no big deal. Put them in the middle, press the trigger. That's why they call them rifles. The category that we bring up next in targets, where we talk about the targets, and there are two categories, what we would call the mental part, okay, and the physical part. When we talk about pistols, we really have to elaborate on this because 85% of all people shot by handguns survive. In rifles, it's not too bad. Under the mental part, you could have somebody who was on drugs. You shoot him with a rifle, okay, and the guy don't do what you want, shoot him again, okay. He isn't gonna like hold up really good to a lot of rifle fire. You could have people who we'd call high dedication individuals, people who are motivated to be there, who want to fight, who want to be in the fight. Shoot them with a rifle. But just remember, because you shot him doesn't mean it's over, just means you had your turn. Then in the category where I talk about physical, there's two things. I'd be like a little bitty fence post guy covered in a bed sheet, bullet goes through me, maybe right through, okay? Maybe I'm a bigger guy, I sort of act as a ballistic gelatin block and the rifle really thumps something. That would give you some idea of what's going on. And probably the one that most people would bring up is they go, what if they have armor? I don't really care if they have armor. That's the one great thing about rifles. Rifles were designed to eat armor the way Pac-Man eats dots. If you shoot him and he looks like Sparky the Wonder Boy because it's coming off a chicken plate, drop the muzzle, shoot him in the crotch, go back up, shoot him in the helmet, okay, and be done with this thing. And the less you shoot, the better you like it, because there'll be less forms to fill out, less brass to clean up. And those of you who are watching this who are from the military, you already know what I think. Shoot them. If they're moving, shoot them. If they continue to move, shoot them. If you're not sure, shoot them. Can Sam or Susie Homemaker do this in their home? Probably not, because we'll have to rationalize what we did before the grand jury. If I shot him and he's in the hallway in my house and the guy's flopping around doing a carpet snow angel and his hand reaches to get the gun again, I'm shooting him again. And I'm going to tell the grand jury, I shot him. Well, you shot him on the ground, Mr. Smith. I did, but he was raising the gun up. Just because they're on the ground don't mean they're out of the fight, okay? Shoot them until you win, but don't necessarily shoot them fast. Shoot them good. That was the whole point. The last element I'd like for you to bring up is what we call an after action, and by that I simply mean no matter what weapon system you use, from a ball bat golf club up to an AR-15, when the police arrive, if you fling the door open with a weapon in your hand, they're not going to know you're the good guy, okay? Most of you are not going to have rifles, okay, in the sense of being in a Walmart parking lot, all right, and then like shooting in and getting in a big rifle fight in a parking lot. Primarily, they would be used in and around your home, and the issue is very simple. They're a better tool, but I need for you to be careful. You know you're the good guy. I check in every single class I have, and very few students have a shirt on that says good guy. The police won't know who you are, and I need for you to especially be guarded, those of you from the private sector, about taking a rifle and going outside your house, which I strongly advocate you do not do, and then wandering around in daylight or dark with a rifle outside your home, okay, where there might be responding officers. And remember, just because you didn't call the police doesn't mean someone else didn't. And now you're around the bend and there's a uniform officer and you got a rifle. Trust me, it's going to be an uncomfortable situation. So be very guarded about the after action responses. Remember, you're not the only one with the phone, okay? You're not the only one with the gun, and they won't know who you are, even though you have the best of intentions. So I would give you this as an example. How many of you have done something in your life you know was the right thing and you still got burned? So I went outside my home to defend my family, and I met an officer at the corner of the house. You see where this is going. So be very careful in the after-action responses, please. I'd like to discuss with you now what we would call deciding factors in confrontations. These are things that we know can determine the outcome of the fight, and we would like you to be aware of them. I don't need to necessarily beat you to death with them, but I need you to get in there and like stir that up in your brain and make you think. The first one is relatively simple. It'd be called mental preparation. What I would like you to do is play the what if game. If they do this, I'll do that. In mental preparation, you could anticipate why it is that you would shoot. I think personally I would shoot to defend myself. I think personally I would shoot to defend my family. I think I would defend my partner if I was a squad car, or my partner if I was in the military. I think those are all, and then people go, well, that covers about everything. Actually, there's a whole bunch it doesn't cover if you actually sit down and clearly think about it. What it does mostly, okay, is for those of you in the private sector, yourself and your family, those of you in the military, you know, that's why we're there, okay? We're going to take care of each other, and so you got the idea with that stuff. What I would like you to do is consider and practice avoidance. The best example of good training is not having to use it, and that's going to be brought on board ahead of time. In other words, in my mental preparation, preparation. I already know when somebody flips me off, okay, at the intersection, that I'm not going to stop my car, haul out my AR, and shoot the snot out of his car. And that goes against the 5-letter word at the top of the handout. Okay, it's not smart. There's not any common sense being applied. There's not logical. So the drill with it is I'd like for you to think about that. In the avoidance thing, it's real simple. Remember, a lot of times people would take advantage of you because they think they can. So, you know, if there is some sort of a scenario and you go to a rifle, trust me, if you roll out from the edge of the doorway with a rifle, a lot of people are going to kind of go, oops, wrong house. And that's exactly right. Show me your hands, get out of my house. And people go, well, what do I capture them? I don't want to catch them. When the police catch them, what do they do with them? They let them go. What do I want to catch them for? I just want them out of my house. I just want them away from me. If I was in the military and this guy is running at me, okay, waving a sword or running at me with a bayonet or running at me with a rifle, all I want him to do is stop doing it. So I'll just shoot him. But it was nothing personal, okay? He could have like got a job as a Walmart greeter instead of like running down the hallway with a big knife in my house or whatever would be appropriate. The next thing I'd like you to address in this same area of mental preparation is what we call the color code. Historically, there were 4 colors as given by Mr. Cooper from Gunsight, and that's great, and you know, good job. We think it's fabulous. I use 5 only because I make you aware of them and not because I thought it was a good idea or it was my idea. In its original inception, there were 5 colors, but it comes back to 4 anyway, so before anyone gets hysterical, okay, it's real simple. The first color is white. White is very simple, the relaxed sheeple mode. I want something for free kind of people, okay? Someone come and take care of me. Oh golly, you know, my life's terrible. All of you can reach up and cross that one out. You don't have to worry about that one. The next one, the one that where we are, most of us are who are watching this, is in yellow. Yellow is an awareness that sometimes bad things happen to good people. So I have a firearm, I have a spare tire in my car, I have a fire extinguisher beside my bed. These things are not paranoia, they're simply preparation. I have a firearm, I go to the range, I practice the skills, okay, that I need to defend myself and my family. I have a spare tire in my car in case I have a flat. I have a fire extinguisher in case my house catches on fire. So yellow is just simply an awareness. Orange is a specific alert. I pulled up at the Walmart parking lot. I started to get out of the car. I heard something going, yeah, clack, 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 clack. It sounds like AK fire. Get back in the car. Go to Kmart. Blue light special day. Okay, there is that adage that we hear, go to the sound of gunfire. I got a better one for you. Curiosity killed the cat. If you don't like it, leave. It's not a problem. The police go, well, we're required. Great. And that's why a lot of you get your eye poked out too, because you're required to step up and fill the little yellow footprints in the fight mode. That's also why, if I knew there was going to be a fight, I'd have took the day off. If I can't get the day off, I'd have got the biggest gun I can to go down there, and that includes a rifle. Guy goes, well, you know, he had a knife. Good. I had a rifle. What's your point? Okay? I'm going to use the best weapon I can. Well, it's a disparity of force. Perfect. Okay? He's stupid enough to come down the hallway with me, at me with a knife, and I got a rifle. Guess what? It's not going to be a very big fight. Matter of fact, it's not even going to be a gunfight. It's going to be a shooting. But he could have put the knife down, and then that would have solved the problem. So that gives you some idea. Red would be a willingness to fight. Some people say they will, some people say they won't. A lot of what we hire now in the law enforcement community are what I call social workers, or basically I want to help the community. I got news for you. You're a bullet trap for the community and a punching bag. Okay, it's nothing ugly, and if you can help people, that's great. That's what I thought when I was going to be a policeman too. But then on very rare occasions, some people don't want to be helped, okay? Some people want to hurt people, and then they might want to hurt you, and then you'd have to defend yourself. So I need you to have a mindset that would make you willing to defend yourself. And if you're not willing to defend yourself, get another job. Because if you're not willing to defend yourself, you're not willing to defend your partner. And if you want to get killed, it's not a problem. But don't take your partner with you, okay? He's probably got a wife and kids who like him. All right, so if you're going to walk the walk, talk the talk, do the deed, learn how to shoot, let's get on with it, okay? The last one is real simple, black. What I would like you to do in black is to simply fight smart. Use cover. Cover for your partner. Use protective cover. Keep your weapon system between you and a bad guy. Have a white light on your rifle so I can illuminate threats for no matter what your occupation. I don't want you shooting your kids in the hallway. I heard a noise. So what? Okay? Don't do something stupid with this gun. So simply black is going to be fighting smart. Using cover. Thinking smart. Being smart. Taking care of my partners. That's really what's going on with that stuff. The next thing I'd like you to think about deciding factors in confrontations is simply tactics, ours and theirs. Don't underestimate the people that you fight. The premise is that everybody's an idiot, and I don't really think that's true. I see these stupid crook videos on TV, but I haven't seen the smart crook video on TV. You're not the only one that's practicing. You're not the only one that's thinking about tactics. You're not the only one that's shooting, okay? So I'd like for you to consider tactics, how you'd apply them, what would work. Use protective cover, use concealment, okay? How do I keep the gun up? How would I cover for my partner? Those are considerations. Third thing is your skills, your physical skills with the guns. I get lots of people, they come, they got rifles, okay? They're not sure how to load them. Your biggest single enemy, you have two, for example, on the AR platform, in my opinion. The mechanical offset between the axis of the bore and the height of the sight, that's a big one. And the other one, okay, is real simple, that charging handle. People don't address the sight correctly and shoot stuff in front of them, and then they ride the charging handle home, okay? Make sure you know what's going on with the sights, all right? And then, remember, the charging handle is not your friend. So it's simple things like that. Your skill with your equipment, your ability to run and manipulate it is a good idea. Equipment-wise, it's real simple. You need a gun that works, and you already know what I think. If I have one that works, then I need one more like it. Don't put anything on a rifle that doesn't solve a problem that exists. Example, baseline rifle, the lightest weight, AR-15 I could have with a white light on it would serve about 99.9999% of your problems, okay? I don't know that I need a red dot, but I'll be honest with you, at my advanced age, the red dot comes in pretty handy for Clint. So at my age, okay, I'm putting something on the rifle that may help me solve a problem. Guy goes, I'm left-handed. Well, then I'd get a left-handed safety on the gun. So in other words, just don't add stuff, okay? I love Brownells. They're great people. They're some of my favoriteest people on the planet. They got like 1,500 parts for an AR-15. You don't need them all on your rifle. Pick the ones that solve a problem and use that, and they'll be glad to sell them to you, and that would be great because they're nice people. But don't put all that crap on your gun that you don't need, okay? Opponent skills kind of ties back in with tactics. I already kind of cautioned you about that. There are people out there, okay, they're practicing too. You want to be aware of it. You want to think about it, okay? You want to think about what's going on. You want to train your family up, your wife, your kids, whatever would be appropriate in your household so that people knew what was going on. The last one in this segment, of course, is luck. I've had people tell me that they would rather be lucky than good. My personal approach to that is I would rather be competent, okay, and then let luck come along for the ride if she so chooses, okay? I don't know that I can count on that in a fight. I would rather you work on working hard, okay, and develop your skills, understanding that stuff can go wrong in a fight, and then let luck be there if it happens to be, but I don't count on it. Next things I'd like to talk to you about are what we would call positive and negatives, or pros and cons of using a rifle. They're relatively short. Mostly I just want to inject some thoughts in your head, okay? So positive aspects of a rifle are relatively simple. Power of the cartridge. Probably bottom line cartridge, in my opinion, is the M1 carbine. And I've had people poo-poo me for that, and they go, oh, M1 carbine, Jesus, well, oh golly. Yeah, well, you know, I'm not being ugly, but one man, Germans and Japs can't be wrong. A lot of people have been shot with M1 carbines, okay? Is it the best rifle? No, but it's a 5-pound rifle, and it's about a 2,000 feet per second bullet at about 110 grains. And if you smack them in the center, that's a pretty good hit. So it's not all that bad, just to give you an idea. We'd have what we would call effective terminal ballistics, okay? The effective terminal ballistics, if I could use a bullet, for example, inside my home, which was a 40 grain hollow point, rather than an SS-109 green tip, what I wouldn't want to do is punch holes all the way through my house, where a 40 grain hollow point might do a pretty good job. It's going to, but would it go through armor? If it don't, shoot them again, okay? But it probably will, but you get my idea. And probably the local meth tweaker that's in your house with a big knife coming down the hallway isn't going to have an armored shirt on, and it won't matter because I'm going to shoot them. If it don't work, I'll shoot them somewhere else. The magazine capacity. This is a real owie for Clint. I do not have a magazine so I can shoot more. I have a magazine so I manipulate the gun less. Okay, it simply means if I fire a rifle and it's a bolt action, I have to, as soon as I press the trigger, it's unloaded, I got to run the bolt, reload the rifle. In a self-loading gun like an AR, I don't have a magazine so I can shoot a lot. I have a magazine because it reduces the manipulation for me to maintain a continuity of fire in the fight. I don't have a lot of ammo so I can shoot a lot of ammo. I have ammo in the magazine so that I can reduce the manipulation. Don't take my word for it. Look at the history of firearms, okay, from balls and flintlocks and all kinds of stuff like that, all the way up to bolt guns and stripper clips and magazines and belt guns. All this is, it's a progression. They go, you mean like for firepower? No, I mean for like it reduces manipulation and I can stay in the fight longer. There was a reason they carried single shot rifles with sticks and balls and little caps and a tomahawk and a knife, because it wasn't very long because the rifle was empty. So like think about that one if you will, okay? The improved sight radius. The sight radius is a little bit longer. If you've got to put a red dot or a scope on it or something for you personally because of your eyes, like I mentioned, no problem. But the sight radius is a little longer. In theory, if you think about it carefully and not misrepresenting it, a longer barrel lets me point the rifle in the direction of the threat a little easier and allows me to get access to the sights, okay? You notice I didn't say we were going to shoot instinctively. That would be very hard to do, okay, because that means you had to drop out of your mom's crotch with an 8-pound rifle in your hands, and that didn't happen. So it's got to be something that's a conditioned response in, but the longer sight radius is helpful. Negative aspects on the rifle, they're pretty much consistent with all firearms, not just rifles, but the first one would be manipulation of the weapon system is user-friendly. I think you'll be hard-pressed to find a rifle that's more ergonomically sound than an AR. I can simply, with my eyes open, looking at this camera lens, I can image where my finger goes to the trigger, extended straight up, magazine released, left hand on it, thumb up, bolt released, left hand charging handle. I see all that in my head as clearly as you see me on this DVD. So I'm looking for something that's user-friendly. Loading is always an issue. What we want is primarily 2 loads, empty loads. I shoot the gun till I win or until it goes empty. I'm not afraid of an empty gun. I simply load the gun. Tactical loads, probably more so with a rifle, and it's real simple. I may want to save or conserve ammunition. My priority is if I have a rifle and a magazine with 25 or 20 or whatever the rounds are, I probably am going to use that magazine to either win the fight or until it goes empty. If it goes empty, I'll reload it. So that'll give you an idea. Leading with the muzzle. I mentioned earlier the rifle can be a little bit longer, but I have no fear of that. I simply know that when it comes to bear on the target, it's a much more efficient weapons platform to fight with than a handgun, so I'm willing to manipulate the length of the barrel to do so. A short little squatty gun, okay, that I'm going to use inside my hallway will probably be just fine. Probably these little 16-inch barrel ARs and stuff like that would be good. And the lighter the gun, the better. Okay, that's a good idea. And the last thing is simply in retention, considering the length if someone would try to put their hand on it. I already gave you the response for that. If you're basically into the gun and someone grabs the front end of it, my personal opinion would be to try to step back, stretch it out. If they want to hang on to the gun, then I'm going to discharge the gun. Of course, always considering that I'm responsible for every bullet that I fire, but you already knew what I was talking about there. So I don't want to lead with the muzzle around corners and things like that. And then after that, it's pretty much like all the other problems that you would encounter, marksmanship and what was going on and the light conditions and so on. So those are kind of positive and negative aspects of using a rifle. What I'd like you to do is just think about a couple things. I'm just bringing up some ideas for you. I'm not really shoving stuff at you fast, but I want you to think, okay, if I was going to put some training emphasis on certain things, these would be categories that I'd like for you to address in your mind's eye. People always go, what should I train to? Well, here's some thoughts for you, okay? First thing is I would work on a stable but mobile platform. By that, simple lateral movements, maybe a step of withdrawal, a lateral movement to protective cover. That would be what we're talking about there. Get the best platform I can. You already know that the closer your head is to the ground, the more stable you are as far as a platform. But if I'm in prone, I lose my feet as far as mobility to move away from a problem. So we're kind of talking about that. Loading and continuity of fire. What I'd like for you to do is get the gun loaded. Primarily in my world, if it was me, what I practice empty loads a lot. I do tactical loads once in a while, but I don't really sweat them too much. My deal is I figure I'm going to shoot till I win or until it goes empty. When it goes empty, I simply reload it. So in my rifle at home, I have a magazine in it. I have a magazine attached with a rubber band to the forearm. I figure if I go through 2 magazines, that's a whopper fight. Inside your house, be a lot of urban renewal and stuff going on, okay? You have to do some sheetrock work, all right? So kind of give you an idea. Third thing is clearing stoppages. If the gun takes a dump, primarily most of the time when a gun takes a dump, it's either bad ammunition or the gun's dirty. So you can preempt about 99% of that problem by just having good ammo and a good clean weapon system. If I was going to have a rifle that I thought I'd bet my life on, I'd probably shoot at least 500 rounds through the rifle before I trip the lever on this is my personal protection gun. So that would give you something to think about. I'd work on manipulation of the equipment, both eyes on and eyes off, and I don't mean like close my eyes. I mean like loading the rifle without looking at it. 60% of our stuff takes place in low altered or failing light. We know that from statistics. So I would emphasize keeping the gun between me and the threat and threat area. Gun goes empty, old magazine out, new magazine in. If I had a stoppage, could I clear it? If it was relatively short range, could I transition to another gun? But that may be good for cops, but it may not be good for somebody in a bathrobe in their hallway. I doubt that they'll have their combat tactical holster on, okay? So, you know, it's kind of like figure out what's going on there for yourself, okay? And last thing I really know, okay, that I'd really like for you to think about is I'd really like for you to think about hitting the target. If we don't hit them, it don't count. You gotta hit them. The guy goes, well, I shoot a 1-inch group. Who cares? I can't see 1 inch, okay? Can you hit a paper plate? Can I hit a paper plate down the length of my hallway? Can I hit a paper plate down the length of my hallway if I was moving right 3 steps to get behind the wall, you know, in the doorway to the bathroom? Those would be things I would be kind of thinking about. I'd like to talk to you briefly about what we call the principles of a rifle. They're relatively simple and they go back as far as we've had rifles, but just give you an idea. First of all, okay, what we call conventional rifles, what you think of like sort of dad's deer hunting rifle, or in the case of like an AR for home defense, it's real simple. I've looked for a rifle that was individually carried in service. By that I mean I can carry it, so that preempts all these 40-pound barrels and all this stuff like that goofy crap that you don't really need on a rifle, okay? And I can service it. You should know enough about the rifle to take it apart, to lubricate it, to clean it. I had a guy not long ago come to class, butt up, gun has a stoppage, butt up, gun has a stoppage, butt up, gun has a stoppage. We put the bolt end backwards on an AR, so it was ejecting inboard into the frame. And people go, well, what an idiot. Okay, great. Are you sure yours is in exactly correct? If I was you, I'd go look again, because tonight when somebody's coming down the hallway, it'd be a really bad time to figure out that I put the bolt together backwards. And you go, they won't go together backwards. Yes, they will, and they don't work when they're backwards, just so you know. So it gives you an idea. The other thing is I'd like for the rifle to be shoulder fired. Everyone's intrigued with retractable stocks because they're cool. You want to be cool, get an ice cube, put it in your armpit. What I want is a solid stock, okay, so to have something so that if I need to have a blown case in it, I could strike the butt of the gun on the ground. If I have a retractable stock because my size or stature is smaller, okay, if you thump them real good on the ground with the retractable stock extended, don't be surprised if you come up with 2 pieces when you get done. So my personal preference, small, short, light barrel, lightweight gun, solid stock, those are pretty good. Add anything on the gun that solves a problem for you. It exists. White light, for example, I need a light, see what's going on. The other thing I would have you consider, if you will please, is we'd like to have the gun be relatively effective. I gave you the M1 carbine nomenclature. The next one that I would give you, for example, would be very simple. It would be like a .223. You know, the velocity is one of the redeeming values of the gun as far as tearing stuff up, and that's kind of really what you're looking for, okay? Assets to urban applications. You and I and to law enforcement officers are pretty simple. You and I would like a small, lightweight system. Trust me, there's not one infantryman on the planet that wouldn't like to have a lighter weight rifle. It's just that simple. If you think about it, you actually don't carry your rifle. You carry it from the safe to the car carries it to the range, you carry it 25 yards to the bench, you jump around, shoot it for a couple hundred rounds, carry it back to the car carries it home. Pick that thing up that has all that crap on it that you put on it and carry it around the house every day for a week. And you'll find out, just like we have in class, I usually can fill the trunk of a moderate-sized car with all the junk that people take off their gun when they figure out that they made the gun too heavy. It doesn't need to be heavy, okay? And that's not really what you're looking for. We're looking for something that's relatively mobile and compact size. I don't need a 24-inch barrel on an AR. Guy who's if I'm at Camp Perry, we're not at Camp Perry, I'm in my hallway, okay? I need to have something that'll work for me in there, something relatively small and compact. Well, longer barrel's more accurate. I'm only trying to hit a paper plate down the hallway. How accurate does it have to be? Okay, I'd rather it function and hit a paper plate than shoot 1-inch groups at 600 yards, because none of you can justify shooting somebody at 600 yards unless you're in the military, and then someone's going to ask you a question about it, because they do. Okay, so you get an idea. The penetration of the projectile, the lack of it. That's why I mentioned these like 40-grain hollow point bullets and stuff like that. I prefer a bullet that would kind of break up. If I shot, it hit them. Worst case scenario, I missed them, it hit the sheetrock, clipped the 2x4. I'd like to have it bust up. I don't think I should shoot armor piercing and SS-109 green tip core penetrators in my house, but that's just my opinion. Speed of manipulation for all of us, okay? I don't mean speed in the sense of a stopwatch. Maybe a better word is ease of manipulation. What's the easiest that I can learn to manipulate this gun? And can I do it with either hand, just in case I have to? So it'll be something for you to think about. And then magazine capacity. You go, wait a minute, you brought that up a while ago. You're right. Redundancy, redundancy. I don't have a big magazine so I can shoot a lot, sports fans. I have a big magazine so I manipulate less. I don't want to shoot a lot of rounds. I want to shoot the least amount of rounds it takes to win the fight. Real simple. There are 2 simple ones. I always give credit to Mr. Cooper. That's why I heard him first. And his were real simple. Rule 1, if you can get closer, get closer. Or I don't necessarily call it a rule, I call it a guideline. In other words, don't shoot him at 200 if I can shoot him at 100. But remember when you do so, in other words, when I get closer, when the guy goes, he's in range, so are you, okay? Ballistic curve works in both directions. If you can get steadier, get steadier. Don't stand if you can kneel, don't kneel if you can squat, don't squat if you can go on prone, and don't do any of those if you can do them behind cover with the rest. I want to dispel some myths here because a lot of people think the only way they can defend themselves in the home is if they have an AR-15 with some sort of laser or something on it or whatever. Okay, trust me, you know, lots of people do good things with lots of different kinds of rifles, okay? Don't discount somebody. There's an old adage, beware of the man with one gun, okay, or a woman, because they probably know how to use it. We mostly think in an AR configuration. I absolutely have no problems or reservations if somebody told me how to defend myself with a bolt-action rifle. I have several real short, small, lightweight ones, and they'll do just fine. And trust me, if I center the paper plate with a 308 down the hallway, I'll bet you $5 it changes the dynamic of the fight. So don't discount one weapon system over another. Many people, for example, I have students that can't, where they live, they can't have an AR, but they can have a Winchester 94. Think about it. It's ambidextrous in nature, a moderate magazine capacity, and 30-30. It's sort of like the equivalent of an AK-47 round ballistically, okay? So don't underestimate somebody because they don't use the kind of gun you do. I've had people successfully take the classes, okay, which would have mostly ARs in them, with lever guns and bolt guns and all kinds of other guns. To include, I actually took an AR class with a single shot rifle myself to show that it could be done. Did I shoot as much as everybody else? No. But when I shot him with a 500 grain bullet right in the center of the paper plate, it pretty much made up for the 55 grain 223, if you know what I mean. Of all the things about the rifle, I think some of the most important issues will be this one. I'm just going to touch it here so that it's in the lecture, but I'm really going to talk to you about it on the range, but I want you to have it. There are three elements of rifle marksmanship, and they have been consistent over the history of rifles. They are, very simply, aiming the relationship of the sights to themselves, what we would call sight alignment, and aiming in relationship to the sights to the target, which we'd call sight picture. But the key is that's the first element of rifle marksmanship. Second one is hold, the physical hold of the gun, and then how I hold the gun in relationship to the target. Things like natural point of aim, your body's structural alignment behind the gun. These are very critical issues, and I'll show you and give you good visual representations on the range. The third thing is probably, if I put it first, it wouldn't bother me. Some people would get hysterical, and that would be squeezing or the compression of the trigger without disrupting the sights. It doesn't matter how good a shot you are or how good the rifle is. There is not a mechanical device made on the planet that will compensate for a jerking on the trigger. Briefly on equipment, I can tell you right now, I mentioned earlier the Brunel's people, I like them a lot. There's lots of stuff going on in equipment. Here's what I'd suggest to you, okay? We have all kinds of stuff. We talk about different kinds of slings and tactical slings and all this stuff. Just simply make your rifle as simple as it can be so it solves a problem for you that actually exists. And get a sling that works for you, all right? Well, what I would do is ammunition-wise, those of you in the private sector, get ammunition, take it out, okay? And shoot some water jugs with it, or shoot a gelatin block with it, or shoot representations of what's going on inside your house as far as sheetrock or cinder block or something like that, and figure out what's going on. People go, well, I saw a video one time. Yeah, I saw Forrest Gump shake John Kennedy's hand on a video too, so I don't know, I buy off on all that, all right? But you need to look at this and make your stuff simple. You know, people go, you mean keep it simple? Yeah, you could say that, except if I say people are stupid, then they get aggravated at me. But just make it simple, make it solve a problem. My idea, a set of the old ladder type sights, short, light barrel, no fancy flash hider on the front. If you look at most of that stuff on people's guns, it's not solving anything for them. I mean, I got a muzzle brake on a 223. What's up with that, okay? I mean, like they'll quell the awesome recoil of the 223, okay? I don't think so, but I'll give you an idea. Light, simple, solid stock, good set of sights, a scope if I needed it because my eyes are bad like a red dot, okay, a white light so I can identify threats. Keep that stuff simple if you can. Remember with like guns and lights are all the same. One is none, two is one, and that would be the thing that you'd want to consider. Especially with rifles, but with all weapon systems, and especially in all fights, okay, I would have you consider covering concealment. I would ask you, why would you go to cover? And you'd say, oh, to load the gun. Then those are all true. But primarily, so you know, if you're thinking clearly, the primary reason that you'd go to cover is to look for better cover. Case where I'm at now becomes untenable. I may be behind the dresser. It looks pretty good against a 38 wide cutter. It doesn't look very good against a 357 Magnum or a 30-06 or something, but you kind of get the point. So cover, by definition, stops, turns, impedes, impairs direct and indirect fire. Remember, firearms generate violence. That's good. It also generates lots of secondary fragmentation. Use cover if you can. Start to get an idea of what it is. Your engine block in your car, the refrigerator, putting your kids in the bathtub when the fight starts. That's probably the hardest armored place in your house as far as keeping them from getting hit by secondary fragmentation. Concealment, pretty good example. You can't see me, okay? And so the deal with it is most of your world is actually concealment. This is the most important thing. Put cover and concealment together to benefit you remembering that people generally shoot you because they see you, and they see you because you let them. Don't let them see you. Get behind the door frame. Get behind the refrigerator. Get behind the squad car. Get behind the adobe building. Whatever it is to keep them from hitting you. That's what we're really looking for. Target indicators are very simple. They occur in every single fight, okay? Every time I teach a class, every time I do a DVD, every time I talk to somebody, target indicators occur in every single fight. We want to know what they are. We minimize the ones we project to our opponents who will use them against us, and we want to take advantage of the ones that they would give to us and use them against them. So the first one is sounds we'd make, sounds we're listening for, dragging ourselves on the wall, cycling actions, okay? Just general all around banging and thumping and crashing around the house. I always love it. I take people in the house on tactical stuff. First thing you do is go in there and start kicking the furniture around. What's the point of that, okay? Just flow in there like water. See if you can be sort of like a butterfly instead of a buffalo when you go in there, so we don't make a lot of noise. The other one, or the next one, will be movement. Movement deletes camouflage, whether issued by God or Kmart. You get a guy all dressed up in camouflage and then he's jumping up alongside a light colored building, okay? That movement, okay, is going to give you up and going to draw fire to you. And movement does draw fire. Guy goes, well, won't it make me harder to hit? It will, but it also tells people I'm at so they can shoot at me, because eventually you're going to get tired of running and you don't want to be like out in the clear. The third thing is reflection or shine. Back of my hands, wristwatch, glasses, scopes, off my optics, okay? Anything that would basically throw a reflection so someone could use it against me. So you have some idea about that. We'll look for them to project it to us, we'd use it, okay? Contrast would be the next one. My dark clothing against a light colored background, okay? That would be an example. My dark colored clothing against a mound of snow, a light colored building, a dark colored bathrobe going down a light colored hallway. Those things might all contribute to drawing attention to yourself, which means you're going to draw fire. And then the last one is outline, standing in front of windows inside or outside, opening a door to the bedroom and then stepping into it with the bedroom light on behind you. Those things are going to draw attention to you. So they're real simple. There hasn't been a fight since the beginning of fights that hasn't had target indicators. Sounds you make, movement you do, reflection that you show, contrast, simple, outline. You want to remember, they're going to see them from you and they're going to use them against you. Mute yours, take advantage of the ones they give you, and beat them up with them. I bring up camouflage here in the lecture part because it's real integral part of rifle use. Generally the ranges, like we said, are shorter, but at the same time we'd have you think about them and be aware of them. They basically are blend, hide, and deceive. Blending, I want to look like part of the environment I'm in. Okay, that could be through color or clothing, or basically taking advantages of the shadow, much like we talked about the target indicators before. Hide, that would go back to cover and concealment as far as I'm concerned. I think people shoot at me because they see me, and so I'm going to do everything I can to make it so they can't see me. Deception, generally in shapes or forms. One of the probably the biggest examples of it now is you'll see people wearing like ghillie suits and stuff, which is a highly overrated piece of equipment, generally talked about by people who haven't worn them, because the last thing I want to do is put 40 pounds of burlap on my back and trundle around the mountains in 90-degree weather. But the idea is a good one in that I'm basically hiding in my environment, I'm blending with it, and I'm deceiving people in that my man size, shape, head, body outline is being broken up by those things. As we work our way towards the end of this, I'd like to put some more food for thought in your head, and they're real simple. They're what we call the M&Ms. They're like the little candy things with the little M's and little stick guys, those guys, okay, that's what we're looking for. The M&Ms actually, though, are pretty serious. The first M is maximize the distance to the threat. Anytime I get an opportunity to open the ground. If you're thinking, you'll go, well, wait a minute, a while ago, you said if I could get closer, get closer. And I said also to do so with caution. You're probably better served, okay, if I maximize the distance, especially at short ranges. Remember, distance buys me space and time. If I was in a hunting environment, okay, and hunting for a deer, I might want to make closure. If I was closing on a guy with a belt-fed machine gun, I might want to use caution. The second M is real simple. It would be minimize yourself as a target. And that's very simple. People shoot me because they see me, and they see me because I let them. If I basically maximize the distance down the hallway, somebody coming at me with a knife, and I could step in behind the bedroom dresser or something like that so that they had to move around it, then that helps minimize me as a target. Primarily think about maximizing the distance and minimizing yourself as a target in conjunction with cover and concealment and then camouflage. And then those pieces will all go together and give you a position, a posturing, shall we say, that makes you less of a target to your opponent. as we get ready to go to the range, as we close out this part, I'd like for you to think about a couple things. It's pretty easy sometimes for me to sit here with my small dog, okay, on the side of the mountain in Oregon and kind of like try to give you information, and people go, well, what does he know? Well, actually, I don't know very much about it, okay? I've only been doing this for about 35 years, give or take a couple weeks. A couple things I do know. Rifles are better than handguns for fighting. The primary purpose of a handgun is to fight your way to a rifle you shouldn't have put down in the first place. And of course, the 5-letter word at the top of the handout would dictate that if all you had was a handgun, I would advocate that you fight and defend your families with it. Then again, if all you had was a Louisville Slugger, I would expect you to fight with that also. So the drill is real simple. Get a relatively good rifle that works, one that's relatively lightweight. Get a light on it so you can see, so you're not shooting in the dark at stuff, okay? And then simply practice rock solid fundamentals till they become an extension of your will. Good luck, and I'll see you on the range.